Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live and another artist spotlight with a friend of mine, an amazing creator who you have probably all seen on here before, Josh Quillin. Josh, welcome to your very own artist spotlight, my friend.
Dude, it's good to be here. What's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
Yeah, how is everyone doing? Back in the chat, saw you guys about an hour ago, so welcome Oliver, Jack, Rob. We got the whole gang and are obviously super excited to be learning from the master himself, Josh Quillen. Before we get into getting to just chat for the next hour, let's be real. I want to just do a little housekeeping just so that if anyone's new to the chat, don't know what is going on, leave your messages and I will be kind of moderating it, funneling it through. We are really just going to be having a conversation today, Josh and myself. I know, Josh, you're going to get into showing some of your workflow as a professional director, editor, just jack of all trades. But really, what I want to talk to you about is sort of your process and your journey, how you got to where you are, spice in some other questions along the way. And for those that are interested in learning more about Josh's career and any sort of tips that you may have, leave them in the chat so that I can funnel them to him and we can all learn together. That
Nice.
being said, I think that's pretty much it. I just want to kind of let you introduce yourself for those that don't know who you are, and kind of just kick things off that way and see where we go.
Yeah, totally. I feel like most people have no idea. Probably, who is this guy? Who's this weird bearded guy in this dark, dimly lit room? My name is Josh Quillen. I am a editor, director, sometimes producer, and usually running my own camera type guy. Kind of a one and gun and run and gun, one man band type thing.
Yeah,
Make a lot of documentaries, do a lot of corporate work, kind of just have, a lot of time and experience in just doing everything I possibly can to survive as long as it has to do with video production, which I think is pretty much everybody. I know James and I work a lot together on different corporate projects and things. And I have a bit of a history of, making feature docs and short films and did YouTube for a little while, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Yeah, that's basically my thing. I like making content. I like story. Story's everything. So if I can tell a good story, it doesn't really matter what it's for. Just
abso-
make it stories, right?
absolutely, man. No, I couldn't agree more. And again, I'm stoked to just like be hosting you here and have that kind of conversation, that chat, because I think everybody's journey is so wildly different, especially in the creative
For
industry
sure.
in our space. It's like there's no real ladder that you follow or set formula you follow. I was thinking back to when I was getting started, asking other creatives that have been in the position you're in, like, well, like how do I get 20 years of experience and how do I get started and get a foot in the door and all those kind of things I wanted to talk to you about today because I think there's a lot of creatives out there that if they're just getting started are obviously anxious about that first step. Like what's the first step that I take or how do you get that first gig or that first job? So
Sure.
maybe we can kind of start I know you talk about your background a lot, but maybe we can start with what got you into storytelling and filmmaking in the first place and what was kind of that drive to make you want to do it professionally.
Sure. I mean, I've been into it for, oh God, for literally ever. I mean, I have one of my most vivid memories. I don't know how old I was. It's probably like 4 or 5 years old. And it was like with my friends, we would like make up little scenes and then we didn't have a camera or anything, but I remember vividly asking my mother, now this is going to age me. I'm going to sound like a really old man at this point, but I remember vividly asking my mother to go to the yellow pages and call the movie people so that
All
we
the
could
movie
film the
people.
scene that we were making
That's
in our
awesome.
living room. And then eventually I got access to a video camera. I must have been 5, maybe 6 years old. And I'm such a nerd at that young of an age. One of my first questions was, well, once I learned that you could get a keyboard that would plug into the camera's old VHS like shoulder thing, I
Yeah.
desperately wanted the keyboard because I really, really, really wanted to make credits. Like that was the biggest thing ever. It's like I want text on screen.
Yeah.
Blew my
Scrolling text on screen. I just want
oh
to
my
know how to do it.
That's all I wanted to figure out how to do. Like, so I've been into this. Like, this has been sort of like my thing. I've always nerded out about it for a long, long time. Um, and it's just, over the years of just doing it. Like, that's when you were saying, like, how do you get started? Like, just do it. It doesn't really, I mean, now
Yeah.
is easier than ever, right? Everyone's got a cell phone with a camera that shoots way better video than the first camera I had. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just doing it. I mean, I saved up money. God, I don't remember what my first camera was. I know the first like camera that I remember actually using for actual gigs was this old Sony DV something. It was really cheap. It was maybe like this big. Wasn't even like
Okay.
I remember like back in the day, like pre-film school. So this would have been like 2001, 2002-ish. There was that white Canon camera that was like
Yeah.
the rage. I can't remember what it was called.
It was the I had it. It was the XH2 or it was like what
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
filmed
yeah, yeah.
like skate videos with like a fisheye lens on
Yeah,
it.
so when you'd go to like Zoomies and they'd have all the
Yeah.
videos playing, that's what everyone was using. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I couldn't afford that, and so I bought this thing, and I used that for a long time, and then oh God, I think I used that, and I used that, and I rented the whatever you just said it was Canon XH9000,
Yeah.
whatever it was called, and the Nimbus 9000 from or 10,000 from Canon. Harry Potter jokes or Nimbus 2.
I was gonna say the Nimbus
Um,
2000.
and I used those two cameras, and I shot technically what would have been, I guess, my first feature length doc. It was the largest car show in on the planet, and I filmed the entire event doing interviews and that kind of stuff. I must have been like 18 years old, maybe 19 years old. And then edited that down into what we sold DVDs of it. I think we sold a few thousand of them worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like my first like big thing into like doing anything. I just sort of knew somebody who worked there and got permission to film and film. They didn't pay me. I just did it. I think that maybe they covered the rental for the weekend for the camera. That was
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
and
but do you remember that like feeling back then too? That was going to be my other question of just being genuinely stoked to just go be like, all right, cool, I'm going to go film this thing and I'm going to
I
go
still have
home
it.
and edit it. Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
even if you're not paying me, pay for the rental and pay for my time and give me the opportunity to just show up and create something.
Oh heck yeah, that's still the way I am. Like I legitimately get super excited about going and shooting. There's always like you get super excited, then you prep for it, right? Or you like get the dread before you have to prep for it. At least
Yeah,
now, maybe 10, 15 years ago when it was just like, you had like one camera and a mic and that was it. But now it's like I have five Pelican cases I have to prep and like take all these little pieces and put everything together. I sort of dread that process just because
same.
blow up your entire setup and then put everything back together. And then there's always that like pre just nerves about going out and shooting. But then, once you're there, it's rad. Like it's awesome. And super excited always to get back, dump all the footage and start shooting. One of my favorite things is everyone always, right after a shoot, everyone will always be like, "What do you think? Did you get it? Does it look good?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I have no
Yeah.
clue. No idea. I don't even know
You're
if
like, I don't know.
I'm really."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's so I know I got something really, really good on a shoot if I can't even wait until like I get home or if I can't wait until the next day because I just need to start editing and then I know I have this little like golden nugget of oh before I even grade this, before I even do anything, I know I got something really special.
Yep.
And I think going back to what you just mentioned before about the nerves and the anxiousness of getting on a shoot and as you know you continue to do this you said you've been doing this a really long time 20 plus years probably
Almost
the
2 years, yeah.
like the it almost comes back to you just want to simplify the gear and shoot the story even though we're all gear like you and I are both gearheads and love talking shop about cameras but I end up feeling sometimes overwhelmed when I have 10 like six lenses on shoot and like three camera bodies when all I want is a run and gun sort of like system and if it's documentary filmmaking like capture those moments while they're happening because those you can't really recreate.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I've always been that way of I don't want a ton of stuff. I've always tried to simplify as much as possible. Shooting with one, maybe two lenses or just sort of, going, okay, well, I know these two lenses give me the breadth of focal range that I need to potentially capture whatever I'm going to capture.
Yeah,
Or even, further simplifying down into how can I get a bunch of things to automate or work for me. It's one of the nice
yeah,
things about what Adobe's been doing with Premiere is like it's just there's a bunch of stuff now that just does it, which is amazing. Had I had half these tools 7 years ago when I was editing the last film that I did, I would have been ecstatic. It would have been amazing. It would have saved me so much time. But when to like I guess start the original journey. So like after making those films, like I opened up a small production studio in LA, or just outside of LA, did that for a while, and then there was a little bit of a hiccup with that, and ended up going to work for GoPro, and there is where I got introduced to those little cameras, and ever since then, we're talking about cameras and stuff. I'll bring 8 GoPros with me on big shoots, usually, particularly doc shoots, because I can mount them wherever. I can throw them on people for POV shots.
Yeah.
I can get my mains and I'm just collecting B-roll without even having to think about it. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a pain in the butt once I get into post because I've got like, oh God, I don't even know. I think the last feature, which was called Epic Home Haunts that we did, I want to say there was, and remember, this came out 6 years ago. So we shot it almost 10 years ago. And I think we ended at that point. It was just my wife and I shooting 10 terabytes, 11 terabytes worth of
Oh my
footage.
God. Oh my God, dude.
Something like that. And this is
That's
not like
crazy.
big camera. Like we weren't shooting on a red. Like it was like
Yeah.
GoPros and an A7S II, outputting into an Atomos because we wanted the 422 color. Now it does
Yep.
422 10-bit internal. Then it was to get 422 8-bit, you had to export out to an Atomos.
Like, yeah, like an SSD Atomos
Yeah, yeah.
in the back of it or something. Yeah.
Because that was the A7S II, which was brand new when we started shooting that. Um, and I mean, in that shoot, we were using 360 cameras, so we had custom 3D printed GoPro rigs with 360 cameras, stitching all that together and bringing that into Premiere, and modifying 360 footage.
Damn.
There's a lot of stuff that like now is sort of normal, right? Like you can go get an Insta360 or like the GoPro
Yeah.
Max. Everyone's mounting them onto their cameras as like secondary things because it's so easy to modify that stuff in Premiere now. But back then, it was a pain. It was a pain in the butt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, in a way, I feel like Premiere has, and we've talked about this before, I think on here and just in person, like Premiere has made so many things easier so that there are no more excuses of, oh, well, now it's going to take me 3, 4 hours to transcribe all this footage or something. Or
Dude.
like remember like the old way of having to send out transcriptions, like
Oh yeah.
manually put them back in, and everybody is almost starting at a level where I think the creativity can flow more freely, and everybody has the ability to, with very low budget, like pick up a GoPro, pick up an Insta360 camera or your phone and start the process rather than what it used to be, 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, the access to technology now is insane, even compared to 5 years ago. Like what is available to everybody to be able to go and make an entire film if you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a quote from Robert Rodriguez that I love where it was, where did I get it? Oh, I got it. It was on the special features of Once Upon a Time in Mexico is where I heard it. He does a studio tour on that DVD, on that to age myself on the DVD.
On the DVD
On the
disc.
DVD of Once Upon a Time in Mexico. He's doing a studio tour and he talks about the way his setup is created is so that he can work at the speed of thought.
Wow,
Where it's
that's
like the
really
moment
cool.
he thinks about it, it's already done, or he can just
Yeah.
immediately do it. And I feel like that's where we are now. Like it's become so baseline for everybody to just be able to just create. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now it's just about what you want to create. It's all about the story and it's all about just digging down into character and making the story better because technically we're all pretty much starting at the baseline, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
million
Yeah.
cameras, they all look the same, they all do the same. Like I know the new GH 7000, whatever it is, now has the airy LUT or is about to be able to shoot an airy color, and I'm just like everything, it's all the same.
Yeah. It
Like
is. And there's almost like nowhere for it to go right now because we as society and also just the community can't really catch up to it. Like we're pretty much stuck at, hey, we don't need to shoot in 8K. Like I'm not shooting in 8K most times. I'm shooting in 4K and I'm down sampling it, to 1080 anyway. So we're kind of where we should be. And I think if anything, it pushes us all creatively because we know it's no longer, it's like lazy filmmaking. I remember years ago when it was like everybody would shoot 120 frames per second or 60 frames per second and like post a montage on YouTube. I was guilty of it. And it was like, oh, this is amazing because YouTube hasn't ever seen anything like this before. And now, you're seeing massive feature films and feature documentaries and beautiful work being put into it. So everybody is at that level. And I think to sort of tie back to your trajectory in your career, the major difference is, putting the work in and the time that you've spent to work on all these different projects and get yourself out there, that you really learn like the elements of becoming a professional like yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's just doing it. It's just spending the time to do it, put in the hours,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many tens of thousands of hours I have under my belt filming or editing. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been God, when did I start using Premiere? The first time I ever saw Premiere, and I was in Sony Vegas previous to this. The first time I ever saw Premiere must have been 2003. So I don't even know what version that was. All
Yeah,
I
that was a
know
long time ago.
is it was light gray and
Yeah.
it made me so confused. I didn't understand because I'm coming from Sony Vegas, which was like this uber simplified like edit
Yeah.
in LA, and jumping into Premiere for a minute, and I didn't know what I was like. I don't get this. And all I had heard was something George Lucas, something something, right? And so I was like, oh, I need to learn this. And dived into it for a minute and just was like, I don't get this. And I went away from it. And then I came back probably 5, 6 years later. And I've basically been since like CS3, CS5-ish time, I've been in Premiere probably every day. So we're talking, what is that, 16 years now? Something like
Yeah.
that. Like literally every single day being
Yeah.
inside of this program. And there's still stuff. Like the other day, I just learned here. I'll show you. Let me show you a little tip here. I have Premiere open. I want to show you this little this little thing that I just learned the other day that blew my mind. So I've got this project open. This is actually we'll play this teaser in a little bit, but I threw some footage for a sequel to the documentary Epic Homance that I did onto a timeline as like a little sneak peek thing. But so check this out. So if you are in your effect controls panel here and you make a keyframe, we'll just use this graphic here as an example. So I'll make a position keyframe and then make a whatever, I'll move it over here. There we go. We have two simple keyframes. How many times have you had like a keyframe situation that you then copy and you paste onto something else? And when you go back to the effects panel, those keyframes are gone, right? Because they're like
Yeah.
way over, like if this is the timeline here, my mouse is, they're
Yeah.
like way down over here and you
Yep.
can't see them, right? And
Yep.
you see like here down here, like I can only see this clip. Well, this clip is actually a bad clip. Here, let me find a new clip. Hang on, let's find a better clip for this. Let's use this clip. There we go. We'll do this one.
I'm excited for this because I feel like every time you go over tips, it's
Okay,
like
there we go.
it's little things that I'm like, no freaking way.
Yeah, so we have these two position keyframes here. Now up here in this hamburger menu, if you uncheck this thing that says pin to clip, you see this?
Yes.
Uncheck that. Do you notice what just happened down here?
Wait, do that again. Let me.
Right, so let me turn pin to clip back on. So this is showing the whole clip, right? So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
this is the clip. This is
Yep.
all right. We have these two keyframes. If I copy and paste this onto another clip, if it's at a different time, those keyframes are off somewhere else. So if we hit uncheck pin to clip, bam, you now have
Okay.
in the effects control access to the entire clip.
Uh,
So if you pasted this and those keyframes are over there, right, and you hit pin to clip, well, they're gone. I
you-
can't I
yeah.
can't get to them at all.
Oh my
But
goodness.
they're still there. So if you hit over here if you hit these little arrows, left and right arrows, it'll jump to those keyframes. If I hit over, like the playhead's over there. If you notice the playhead here on the timeline is
Yeah. Yeah.
moving to where it is on this clip. So that is
Oh,
not
that is awesome.
unchecked pin to clip. I can now go get those keyframes and bring them into where, if you notice, it's highlighted where you actually have your in and out
Yeah. Yeah.
points on the timeline.
That is awesome.
Isn't that great? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was I learned that the other day, and it was one of those like mind-blowing things. My head exploded. It was like, what? I've been dealing with this for so long, and I had no idea you could do this.
Every like I feel like it's every couple of months I'll be working on something and then that will happen. Like I'll find something in Premiere. I'm like, hold on a second. what just happened? What did I do? What wizardry just appeared?
Yeah.
And it's like they hide little Easter eggs. And again, it's like kudos to the teams that continue to listen to those sorts of things because they're small. Yeah, they're small little things, and not everybody is going to need that specific function. But when they need it, they like really need it. So
Exactly. There was actually one more here. We'll get back into we'll get back into talking about me in a moment.
yeah, back to me later. Back to you, Ted.
But this was another one that I literally the other day was just like, oh God, I really need to do this. I was working on a corporate project and I had a timeline with a bunch of it. So imagine each one of these clips I have to export as an individual video. That's basically what I was working on. I had like 15 different selects that I needed to export individual clips as, and it was across one timeline. So I exported them all, uploaded them into Frame.io, and the producers looked through Frame.io and just said approved or not approved as to which ones they wanted. Well, I
Okay.
wanted to, on my timeline, I wanted to make the individual clips that had been approved green,
Okay.
but I knew that they were approved. Well, in Premiere, let's see, I think these two the same clip. Let's see. I needed two clips that are the same. Here we go. So this is C1 5 through 7, and this one's also C1 5 through 7. So these two clips are the same individual clip. If I was to right click, hit label, and make this green. Oh, okay, I have it turned off. This is a bad example. Um, where did it go? Well, there's that's funny. Oh, here it is. Okay, I have it turned off. So label, let's see if it'll do it now. Oh, now it's not going to do it. So if you don't have, so if you notice it's doing it individually, there is under the wrench here, there is this, oh,
I
here it
feel like
is.
I've seen.
Show source clip name and label. So you notice it changed now to blue.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's checked by default under the wrench. That's on. If
Okay.
you right click and you change this to green, you notice it changes every clip,
Ah,
right? Because it's changing the raw clip.
okay.
I didn't want that. And I didn't know that if you go into here and you uncheck that, you can now individually change
Ah.
clip color to,
Oh,
di
that's awesome.
to different clips, right? So it could be like approved, not approved,
Okay, very cool.
right?
Yeah, and I mean, and you can, I mean, and that can go one step further too. Not that I've ever like wanted to set keyboard shortcuts for it, but like you could set, can't you set shortcuts for colored label? So if you're
Oh, for
going
sure.
through and just like basically don't have to leave the keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, you just have to make sure that show source clip name and label is unchecked.
Very, very
Yeah,
helpful.
that was like a 1 hour search for my part the other day, and I was
Yeah.
just sitting here going, "Why in the like?" I was getting so angry. Like it wouldn't let me change one clip to green, even though it was technically the same clip. Like I
Yeah, yeah.
in and out to be green, and then
Uh,
yeah, uncheck show source clip name and label, and you can do it. That's
that is really cool. And that's a really good, I mean, for any project, but specifically for projects where you're, yeah, you're using like 3 or 4 clips and cutting those up. You want to be able to actually label those specific moments rather than, a scripted thing that every scene is going to be different anyway.
right, and it all depends on the situation. Like like I said in this example, the producer had just gone through and said these are approved, these are not approved, and
Cool.
I just wanted the timeline to be extremely organized. I'm a timeline organization weirdo since we still have the program open. You can actually see my audio is just cam, music, SFX, 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 and then a bunch of submixes. Um, I can get into submixes if we really want to. That has to do with delivery. The only
Yeah,
thing,
I actually have a question about that.
yeah, what's that?
So okay, so when you're, let's say you're finished with this, right? Like you've mixed all of your clips individually. Do you add is the submix already defaulted, or do you add a submix and
No,
then mix?
so that is created during your sequence. So if I sequences here, if I create a new sequence, and we go into tracks, you can see that right now it says stereo. So if I was to set that to multi-channel, I can then change the output assignments. You see that? And I can add
Yep.
submixes here. So like if I go, okay, well I know I want whatever, dialogue, music, sound effects, right? So I have all these things. So did I spell that right? That would be very embarrassing. Dialogue.
No, that's what I always think it's not spelled like, but then it is, right? It's the worst thing to spell all the time.
Yeah, sound effects and music, right? I can pre-label those, and then you can take each audio track. And make sure you guys can see this. Yep. Okay. And you can, well, here, real quick here. You have to change your number of assignments. So we're going to do 8. We'll do 8 channel assignments. Um, so now if you see here, if we click this output channel assignments, we have 1 through 8, right? And it's split into stereo. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what I generally would do is I'll keep like 1 and 2 as like a master. And then I'll set like, okay, this one here will be dialogue. So I'll set it to 3, 4. And then I'll make sure this dialogue here is only 3, 4. And we'll set SFX to 5, 6. We'll set music to 7 and 8. And then you get it and you go down the line, right? So like
Okay.
if audio 2 is going to be music or sound effects, I know SFX is on 3 or is on 5, 6. So I'll set it to output this channel to the master 1 and 2 and a 5, 6. You go down the line to do the whole thing. Let me hit cancel on this because I've already done it with this. And then in your audio track mixer, you'll get something that looks like this. So you see I have submixes 1, 2, and 3. Uh,
Yep.
these are not labeled, but it's 1 and 2, so a master, and then 3 and 4, which would be like camera audio. 1 and 2, a master, 5 and 6, which I think in this case is music, and then 1 and 2, and 7 and 8, which I have sound effects. The nice thing about this is that, as you can see, I have 3 different sound effects tracks. They all then filter into this one submix. So I can just like bring all the sound effects down if I wanted to. Uh,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
so on and so forth. And then over here, as you're monitoring, you also get individual solos for each one. So if I was to play that,
Enjoy the show.
I can solo individual, only monitor certain things if I wanted to.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
So if you have
Okay.
a producer somewhere, or someone like in room that was just like, oh, I just want to hear this. Okay, well, let's just turn on the vocals then.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Whatever. Or, oh, okay, I just want to hear a main mix, that sort of thing. And then what's really handy with this is then during delivery, so if we go into export here, and we go into audio, I haven't done this in a minute, so I got to remember how to do this. I think it only works under QuickTime, and I'm not sure what else, but if you go to deliver your project here, you can actually deliver a file with multiple audio clips inside of it on different tracks, kind of like how your camera can record like 5, 6 tracks of audio. So I
Yeah.
use this for masters. So if I was to master this project and go, okay, well, I don't want 5 different audio files in a folder so I want like my main master clip and then like 5 exported, stems or whatever in one folder. I just wanted just one clip that I can give somebody. They can, bring that clip onto the timeline and it'll separate out a master, VFX, music, and like a camera,
Cool.
onto different tracks. You can do that here. So under QuickTime, if this is like this is generally what it looks like. You hit more, and it says audio channel configuration. You can just hit the plus, and then hit 2 channels, and I want it to be 3, 4. Hit
Hmm.
plus to do 5, 6. Hit plus, and now 7 and 8. So now you're going to get a master here, and then you're just going to get your camera audio, music, and SFX on 3 different individual audio tracks.
That's cool. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that would actually, I feel like you need to come on here and do an entire pro tip on that because that
I think
seriously,
they did actually.
maybe you did.
Adobe Live.
Because it really is like it's a part of the process, and for as long as I've been working in Premiere, it's still part of the export process of mastering and like having those submixes that I still don't have like fully baked and figured out. And clearly you've been doing it a lot longer, so so it would be really helpful.
This took a lot of fiddling with to figure
Yeah.
out a lot of
Yeah.
forum posts. Yeah, that's the other thing that's great about Adobe is like there's so many forums of just like you have a question, like just there's so many places to find information, and
Yeah.
there's like 1.7 million YouTubers who are currently doing content on Premiere. So if anything, just go to YouTube and you'll find somebody who talks about it. Like I remember I wanted to learn a bit more about Premiere Productions, and I went to Premiere Gal, and I just watched a couple of her videos. I was like, oh, I got it. Cool. I
Yeah.
just know this.
Yeah, she's great. I've used her in like every Premiere question I have. It's like Premiere Gal shows up. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I know what I need.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's cool because like now all those people are here on Adobe Live. Like Justin OD shows somebody that I've followed for a long time that he's over here. It's a really cool community, and I think we're all learning from each other, even if we've been doing it for 15, 20 years. It's like
Oh,
that's the
absolutely.
best. Um, well, I wanted to kind of hop in, Josh. I have like a lot of questions for you, just separate from you and I being friends. And we
Yeah, so
don't have a
everyone just go get a coffee. James and I are going to hang out for a little while. We're going to chat
yeah.
in a few
We'll
months.
be just cancel the rest of the streams for the day. Josh and I will be here the rest of the day.
Nice.
But I do want to have you talk about kind of the project that you worked on and then this project. But I had a couple questions I want to ask you first before we get into the edit because we only have about like 25 minutes left.
What?
I know, dude, it's crazy. Um, so you talked about the feature film that you shot that is on Amazon right now, right? Or
It's
on
on Amazon.
it's
It's
on
on
Amazon?
Amazon Prime. Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Amazon
uh,
Prime Video.
awesome. And so how did, I mean, I'm curious, like, were you contracted to do that, or was that something that you were just really passionate about these haunts and decided, let me self-finance this film, or like, what was that process like?
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting story. So, and it has a bit of LA-ness in it, if that
Love
makes
that.
sense.
Oh
So,
yeah, I love LA-ness.
so I grew up in and around LA, and I've been out here for a long time. Moved away for a while, and I'm back. But when I've been involved, like some backstory for me, I've been involved in what's called the haunted attraction community for a very long time, probably like 15-ish years, something like that. It's basically groups of people who make haunted houses, right? I've always been into VFX and physical effects, things done in camera, that sort of thing. And that's sort of what got me into that world is because these are people who do this type of stuff for a living. And so I've always learned how to do that. I mean, like just behind my shoulder is this big old 3D printer. Like I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff. Like it's just I love it. And so that's how I started. And I met some friends, Chris and Gina. They have a YouTube channel called Hollywood Haunter, and they are scenic designers professionally. Like they're art directors for Hollywood, in Hollywood and TV and stuff like that. And I was noticing that they were building these crazy things at their house every Halloween. They had this little bungalow, Burbank bungalow, which if anybody knows how big those things are, they're tiny, like little
Oh
800
yeah.
2 bedrooms, right? And they're on almost no land. Like you've got spot for maybe like a car and a car part, a carport usually, and a small front lawn. But they would build huge displays, like full cemeteries with big old cathedrals that you could like walk through, and like what would look like you were going down to an underground mausoleum with moving crypts and this whole thing. And it was crazy. And um, they would try to film it, but their low light wasn't great. They didn't have all the lighting equipment, and they were doing this one for the community, right? But two, they
Yeah.
were doing it also just to get work to show off their skills. And them being friends of ours, we messaged them and basically said, "Hey, like." We had our production studio outside of LA at that time, and my wife and I just went, "Hey, we'll bring our gear, like we'll bring the camera cranes and all that stuff, and all the full lighting package, and we'll just come film and hang out and get you some good video." And so we did that. At that year, they had built a full Western town. So the small amount of space that they had, right? They
Oh
put
my goodness.
an entire saloon facade across their entire house that was 2.5 stories tall. It was the entire length of the house wide. Um, they had built a jail, a general store, a train station,
Oh my goodness.
a dentist office, a what else did they build? They built like a welcome center, a water tower with an entire panning for gold set up for kids, and a mine that had
Oh my goodness.
pushed a thing and like it exploded type thing for the kids. Um, and it was insane. And you could literally walk through it. It was like a mini Knott's Berry Farm if anyone's ever been to Ghost
Yeah.
Town.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
Knott's Berry Farm. It was insane. And so we spent the entire night filming. And after we were done, my wife and I basically both looked at each other and went, this took 5, 6 hours, something like that to film. Wasn't terribly difficult. We did it just the two of us. If we had maybe a day's worth of interviews and some footage of them building, this is a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and we pitched it and sold it as a TV show for something, and not on HGTV, but a similar type of deal. Um, Unfortunately, that never worked out. We still own the rights to everything and all that. And so, about a year later, some friends of ours started a convention called Midsummer Scream, which happens in LA every year. That's actually about to happen in about 2 weeks. At that time, it was tiny. It was like a few hundred people. It was really small. Now it's grown to, I think last year there were 40,000 attendees, and
Oh
it's
my goodness.
the largest Halloween gathering in the country. Uh,
Wow.
and so we were hanging out with them, we were doing that, and both my wife and I basically looked at each other and went, you know what? Forget it. Let's do it, but let's not do the TV series because at the time it was like we had no distribution. How would we do that? Who would watch it? Where would it go?
Right.
Let's just self-fund a feature film, and we'll take it from at the time I think it was 18 different haunts. We took it down to four, um, and instead of following them briefly, like let's dive into this niche super hard, and we followed them for 2 years and then another year of filming with like a year of post-production, basically. So it was about a
Damn.
4-year film shoot with like a year or two of pre-planning. Uh, you know, b before that,
Yeah, yeah.
sort of including the TV series planning. Because we had done a whole bunch of like we were in like getting into contracts with people at the time when that whole thing fell out. Um, and so yeah, so we just self-filmed, self-funded, did the whole thing. I don't recommend doing that. It's very
I was gonna ask you. I mean, that has you have to be I would assume, you have to be, especially the fact that it takes 4 years, or at least in your case, it took 4 years to
yeah.
self-fund, spend the time doing that, whether you like it or not, like you'd have to be working as well the entire time and
Oh yeah,
have
yeah, 100%.
jobs that are helping to pay to self-fund those. Because I think in theory, it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to make these documentaries, and then life takes over and you have to make sure you're taking care of all the other stuff at the same time.
Yeah, we were lucky enough, my wife and I, to be living in Silicon Valley with really good tech jobs. I was running production for some Silicon Valley companies at the time. Um, so like building studios and stuff out there. And so we had some good money, and we would basically just we had, at the time we had no kids. So don't come at me with like bad parenting or anything. But like at the time we would basically Friday nights at like midnight, we would jump in the car, we would load up the Prius, jump in the car, and we would drive the 5 freeway all the way down to LA, and we'd start shooting at like 9 in the morning. We just basically
I
get
love
there
it.
and unload, start shooting at 8, 9 in the morning, be done at 7, 8 o'clock at night. We would usually go to Disneyland for a couple hours because we're in the area. Why not? Go to the hotel, wake up the next morning, go back to shooting for 5, 6, 7 hours, and then get in the car and drive back up north so that we could be at work on Monday.
I
And we
love
did
that.
that, like I said, for about 3 years, 2 and 3
Th-
years.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean,
Oh,
it's I love hearing stories like that because there's so much passion in the way you talk about it and what you do. And when you're creating something like that, like we talked about when we first started, like there's no linear path. Like you have to sacrifice things, but because you genuinely want to do it and you genuinely want to make something that you're like, oh, this is a story. This is something that has legs. It could either be, it could be as big as you make it and push yourself on it. I think that's
yeah.
just awesome advice for me to constantly remember myself, and for people again that are just getting into the career, that have been doing the career as long as you have, that it's always a grind, but it should be rewarding when you do it the way that you've done it.
Oh, for sure. And find something you care about, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
am passionate about like I like seeing people take PVC pipe and hot glue and make a candle, and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. Like that is really exciting for me. As nerdy as it is, kind of like, like I watch, like Adam Savage in his cave just making things, and I'm like, this is so
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
nerd out about that stuff. And so being able to share a niche with the world, home haunting, because the film is about home hunters. So it's people who do these things on these grand scales, but at their houses. Um, they don't charge for it. It's all donations. It's free to go in, but they ask for donations. Usually, like 90% of the time, they don't even take any money out of the donations. All those donations go to charity. Um,
Cool.
and it's usually a local charity. Like some of the haunts that we had in the film, like the year that they did the haunt, or every year that they do their haunt up in Santa Clarita, up by Six Flags, they're the local food bank. They're the largest provider of food because that's their donation. And
Yeah.
basically every October, the food bank would be bare without this home hunt doing this
Mm.
insane thing. And these people they're not scenic directors like the Hollywood Haunter guys, they are. Most of these people are not. Like all the people in the film, none of them are professional like
Yeah. Yeah.
directors or set designer. Like none of them. They're postal workers. One guy was a hospital worker, they're building inspector and a librarian, and all these different things. And it's like none of them do this for a living. And so we just thought that was super cool. We were like, nobody has featured these people like this. And then there's also like a weird stigma around haunted attractions and things. We've probably all seen the crazy documentaries.
Of what the McCamey Manor.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to
Yeah,
say, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Who's a bit of he's a bit like Voldemort in the haunt community. He who shall not be named.
yeah,
There's all this stigma around it. And so we wanted to try to like get away from that and be like, look, that's not this community. That's just this guy.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
bite my
yeah,
tongue, but it's just this guy. The haunt community is not like this, and showing this niche in a really good light. And we've been, like you saw a minute ago on the project, I've been filming ever since. The idea was always let's do three of them, and then COVID hit. And
yeah,
so we've sort
yeah,
of been sitting on our hands for a number of years, and moving cross country twice during that time,
yeah.
and
So
having
you've been a little busy.
yeah, we had a kid move cross country twice and dealt with a global pandemic. Nothing,
Yeah,
nothing out of
just
the
the
ordinary.
norm, just the average out of the ordinary stuff.
Um,
So
yeah,
what has like the post getting the film out there and actually distributing it?
so
Because
that
that's a
was
part that we don't really talk about a lot on here.
yeah, as an indie person, that's really, really difficult as an indie filmmaker, especially an indie filmmaker who doesn't have clout, right? Like you could be a Kevin Smith indie filmmaker, and every studio is going to go, "Oh, Kevin Smith's making a movie. Oh,
Right, right.
there's gonna be an avenue for that. Um, even when you look at films like Talk to Me, which was an indie film that then premiered, got into Sundance, premiered at Sundance, and A24 bottom. Even that movie had a very not very large, but a fairly large budget with some guys who had some major clout on YouTube. They've been on YouTube for what was like 15 years as kids doing wrestling stuff. So they had a nice avenue, right? Most filmmakers don't have any of that stuff.
Right.
Some guys like I don't say his last name, Maddie, the YouTuber Maddie
Oh,
Hapoy.
Hapoya.
Did I say his last name? Like he just
Yeah.
produced the film, but they had YouTuber guys, right? They had some clout behind them. The film looks amazing. I really want to see the film that they made. For us, it was we just made the movie. We didn't know how to distribute it. We figured we'd do the film festival route. Um, this movie was so niche, and it's funny looking back now. I see it and I'll watch it, and I've grown so much as a filmmaker. Just learned what not to do. Most of the movie is very cringe to me. Just the lighting is terrible. There's lav mics that are just visible on everybody. It's just a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff, right? That's like, oh, I would never do that again. Um, but we actually had a fairly bad experience with this. We ended up going with a independent distributor who was one of these guys where it was like you paid a fee and then they would take it and submit it to like Netflix, Hulu, and all those guys. And we decided, well, we'll try that. Um, and in the midst of figuring out who we wanted to go with and if we wanted to do that, Amazon launched an independent filmmaker project.
Hmm.
And we were invited to join as one of like the first couple of members. I don't know how, but we were invited to join and got approved. So we now have distribution access through Amazon Prime Video.
Oh,
Uh,
that's really cool.
yeah, so like that's just a thing that like we're able to do now. So if any sequels we want to make or we want to make a series or anything we want, we can distribute directly to Amazon Prime Video in a number of worldwide markets. I think it's the UK, Australia, Canada, Japan, and Germany are the
Wow.
are the ones that we can distribute in. Epic Home Months is actually currently waiting to be held for Canada and Australia. It's hopefully going to release in both of those markets in like a couple of weeks. Fingers crossed. So it'll be like just before Halloween.
So,
Uh,
I love that. That's cool.
yeah,
And so people that are watching that are in the US right now can watch it though.
Amazon Prime Video. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
free. Like you can't stream it with Prime, but it's there for I think it's like $1 or
Sweet.
two
Yes.
to rent.
Support this guy for a dollar. Come on.
Pretty
Come
expensive.
on.
And then yeah, then we put it on Vimeo. But where I was going with this distributor is we had paid some money. They were pitching us to Netflix, Hulu, and all these other places. They got us in. We were on Apple for a while, up in iTunes and on Apple's streaming service. And then this company just went out of business. We suddenly stopped hearing from them. They went out of business. Never saw a dime of any of our money.
Oh
People
my
were buying
goodness.
it, were running it. Never got a check. Still haven't. And then Apple took down all the films and stuff from them, obviously.
Man, man.
So yeah, so that was not a great experience. But
Sure, sure. Yeah, those are some growing pains for
what are you
sure.
gonna do? It's a indie filmmaker life in LA.
Yeah, yeah. Which is often glorified, but is not great.
Oh yeah, like it's funny. You see all these things, and everyone's just like, you know, like no offense to Adobe, but like they'll put out stuff, and it's super nice, and it's well polished, and it's great, and it's showing independent filmmakers in Premiere and working and stuff. And I'm like, that's cool, but that's like 10% of the job.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everything else happens
90% of it.
outside of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like 90% of this job is on your laptop doing paperwork and sending
totally,
emails.
totally. Yeah. Well, why don't we got about less than 15 minutes left. Why don't
Yeah.
we hop in if you want to good segue from the film you've already created. You mentioned a little bit about the teaser you're creating for a potential like part two, right? Or
So, well, this has been so this project here, I can turn this audio up a little bit and I'll hit play in a second. This was I think all of this footage was actually just from last Halloween. I had filmed a bunch of footage and it was just like it's all sitting here. I have terabytes of this stuff on
yeah, yeah.
servers and I haven't done anything with it. Let me put like a teaser together real quick. And then I ended up using these teasers in the last Adobe Live and this one. Um, to just put it together, just see if it's interesting, see if some of this footage works. Um, because we are still shooting and we're actually actively shooting interviews and stuff this year. So we're like actively in production now on a
Cool.
sequel to this doc,
Sweet.
which takes it out of LA and makes it nationwide and sort of takes it to that next step of what this home hunting niche is. So yeah, I can play this real quick. It's a little 30-second teaser of just last Halloween.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Should I go full screen? Can I go? Should we go full screen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's rock full screen.
There we go.
Welcome to the California Theater.
It's a wonderful day to die.
Enjoy the show.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Welcome to the California.
that's
What's the I noticed that little like jump cut glitch that you have in that first like couple clips.
oh,
Is
there's a
that
bunch of
like
them. So this is just something I've in teasers I've done just to try to like make transitions a little bit more interesting
yeah.
is doing like a speed ramp. Particularly like shots like this, right, where we're panning up and moving in. A lot of the times the way we're shooting these haunts, like this is the outside of the haunt and this is their entrance, right? This is the front lawn of this person's house. They
That's
built
crazy.
and
It looks like a full-on theater. I would never think that that was someone's front
yeah,
lawn.
no, these are just flats. And I'm standing on the sidewalk outside of their Burbank house. This is Rotten Apple 907, which is off of California Street in Burbank, if anyone wants to go. They're probably the nation's oldest running home haunt at this point. I think they're on year 34 or 35 this year.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, and it's just this husband wife team, and they a lot of help from the community and stuff, but they do insane work. But yeah, so a lot of shots like this, like in a teaser, you just want it to here. Let me just mute the mix here. It gives it a little bit more of an interesting, whoosh into stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
when you do the transition, I can transition this to pushing really quickly through the door to then a quick, rush down into this next shot. This is also like this is somebody's driveway.
That's great. That is crazy.
And what's inside here is this. All right, is this character Matthias. You walk in
Dude.
behind these shelving units here. I can actually, if I bring this up, little trick, if you ever highlight over a clip and hit F, it will bring that source up into your monitor here. But you can see here, we just go through. I mean, this is how
That's
big these things are, right?
wait, that's all the driveway?
This is all the
Or that's
driveway.
all the garage and to the
Oh, it's just the driveway.
that's insane.
So this is just up and in, and you pick one door, one, two, or three. They all lead to the same space, but it gives you like a cool little.
That's so sick. I feel like I want to go to this now. It's
Uh,
really
this one is called Reichland Asylum. They're out in Riverside. They're huge. This haunt is massive. They have a lot of land in the backyard, and so I mean they're full on.
oh my
Like
goodness.
this is cool. You go through the fridge. Yeah, it's insane. The stuff that these people build is wild. But yeah, and then, so yeah, just doing these little jump, speed ramps into shots, just give it a little bit more of a visual interest. Um, and I use them
Yeah.
all over in
And
teaser.
I feel like for these like teasers too, like jump cuts, like jump cut manual glitches without adding a glitch is always so nice. Like it kind of looked like you had one in there, but maybe it was
No,
just the way the guy like cracked his head.
yeah, there's no actual glitch transitions on anything. It's all just a bunch of speed ramps.
Dude, this is so
Um,
cool. How long
but
does it take, like that Riverside one? I mean, they're because they all look pretty epic. It's got to take them months to build these things.
yeah, I mean, it depends. Everybody starts at a different time. Rotten Apple usually starts around Labor Day weekend, and they're open about 6, 7 weeks later. But you gotta remember, like all these people have storage like you've never seen.
I can, yeah.
It's insane. So, as an example, Rotten Apple 907, again, little Burbank bungalow, but they've had that house for like 50 years. They built a second story onto it, and they've done all kinds of stuff. They're wild people. Um, their entire backyard it's more or less they've built their backyard into be like a studio design shop. They literally have a paint shop, they have a wood shop, they have a
Wow.
storage area in their backyard. They've taken their pool and they filled it with props, and then they put a deck on top of that and then filled that with props. And then they also have like a half acre of storage out in the high desert. Um, of just open storage and some like big steel, like those big train cars, storage just filled with stuff. In the dock, you see that storage that they have out in Acton, and it actually floods at one point, so they lose like
Man.
half of their stuff in the middle of shooting in between years. They just so we were out there for days with the drone and stuff out there filming, wading through mud and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely insane what these people do. But in terms of the edit, in terms of like editing teasers like this, yeah, I like to do a lot of these like jump quick cut type things, especially to music. So if we here, we'll just bring this mix back up, and then I don't know what submix the music is. Is it this one here? So
Oh, that's what I thought. Because he like his head looked like it had.
yeah, so that's just
Yeah, yeah,
that's just the speed ramp, right, of his head, which I liked this shot in particular because the fog came in
yeah.
right at the end. So he says that cool line, it's a good day to die, whatever he says here.
Wonderful day to die.
Wonderful day to die, and then the music
Oh man,
just hits.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I'm a huge fan of using music. I'm not always a huge fan of cutting on the beat, but I think for teasers it works really, really well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When I edit, I usually like if I'll edit the full doc, I edit without music at all. Unless it's a montage moment, I'll edit to just zero music because in my opinion, and this was an editing tip from I don't remember his name, but he edited The Matrix. And his tip was edit with just your dialogue and your scene,
Mm,
no sound effects, no music. And if the scene holds its weight, if it's interesting, then you've done a good job. And then you can start sprinkling in all those things. Because if you have to
yeah,
use music as a crutch or something like that to make it interesting, then you as an editor haven't done a good enough job. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, and
we're also
I no,
human,
I mean,
but
I do agree with that too. I think there's times when if you lead with the music, it can get you. You become a little more complacent with the pacing, and so then you feel like your pace has to match the music, where you haven't
right.
really figured out the pace of whatever that scene is before adding the music. And I think the music then like kind of amplifies it. Plus, you can be a little lazy with just one music track, whereas if you build the sound design with layers, you might have 3 or 4 tracks in there that all work in
Yeah,
different
and
parts,
sound effects are a huge, 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 huge thing that I feel like it's forgotten. Like this teaser is just nothing. I have it playing in the background here. Is just so
Yeah.
many sound effects.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
know they're awesome.
stuff you're probably not gonna hear if you were just listening to it. But like this scene feels so dead without
Right.
any of that stuff, right?
Totally.
Or
Totally.
the little ing with the clown and
Yeah,
stuff.
that I love that little what is that sound effect? That's just like a
It's just like a little squeeze thing, right? Like with an echo.
ooh, it's sweet. I know, and the bell.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just layering stuff in your edit is super important, but always starting without it. Like, get it good
Yeah.
without any of that
Yeah.
stuff, and then layer it on. It'll just make it even better.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, I know we are running pretty much out of time. It's crazy how fast these
Minute.
go, honestly. Like we have like a minute left. But Josh, thank you as always for coming
Yeah.
on here and sharing your wisdom and your journey and just your process in general. It's always awesome to hear that side of things. And congratulations on all your success and
No, thank you.
continued success. I know we'll be working
Cool.
together a lot more from here on out.
Yeah, I'll see you in a couple weeks actually. Like
Yeah, like in August sometime we'll be working together.
August, September. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone in the chat, as always, for tuning in with us. And for those that were not here to watch the full video, should be on the Adobe Live YouTube channel, so you can rewatch this at your leisure. But other than that, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Josh, I'll probably talk to you in the next couple hours.
More than likely.
All right. Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.